Hello, friends. Welcome back. On the previous video, we have seen on how the lifestyle is going to be just working on a theoretical part. And on this one, we're going to see the practical part of utilizing life cycles. Let's do it. Now, for this one, we're going to be just using one component. So I'm going to go ahead and then create one out of this one. I'm going to rename it to lifecycle. Then I'm going to quickly change the name of that one into a life cycle. And just to make it like a little bit cleaner, I'm going to get rid of like the header, and we're going to be just having only one. And on the child is where I want to add it. Then over here, actually we can clean this one as well. I'm going to be just taking care of this one out. So we have that one, and all we have to do, and of course, like we don't need this one as well. And I'm going to clean that. And over here, I'm going to have life cycle. Then I'm going to save that, and you can see that there is someone is not happy, and that's because life cycle is not defined, and we know how to do that one. It is because the life cycle is a component, we have added it, but child is not aware of it. So we're going to add it here, import. Then we're going to say life cycle. Then since we are on the same page, I mean on the same directory, then what we can do is from the current, just take the life cycle. And now that would make this one happy. Well, still it's not happy. On a child, there is still a problem. Let's see quickly what's the problem. Render div life cycle. Life cycle is not defined. Well, we do. Life cycle. What did we miss? Life cycle. Oh, I think I know why. Did we import that properly? Life cycle, I mean export that. Yep, we have done that one. I don't know what's going wrong. Maybe I haven't saved this one. Okay, anyway, so we have solved that one. So on this one, what we are going to do is just for the sake of testing, I'm going to say in paragraph life cycle component. And just as a reminder, like we are inside the child. So, you know, like the app is going to be a parent, a grandparent for the life cycle. So that's what we have added over here. So lifecycle component is added, and that's the one that we have added it here. So let's do like the concept of like the life cycle on this one. So the first thing, probably let's do the counter, and I'm going to initialize it with 0. And remember, like this is outside of like the constructor. So the very first one, initializer, is going to be init, which is going to be for the initializer is going to be constructor. I'm going to say this one, and for the constructor, we're going to be just passing props, and we're going to super props, and this one is like for the parent class, which is React.component. You know, just this one is basically the one we have it from the JavaScript. It has nothing to do with the React per se. And there are two ways that we're going to be just creating the state, as we have said, mentioned on the previous videos. One is just to make it like outside, and the other one is we can also make it as a part of like the a constructor. So if you have the constructor, any of the initializations shall be performed inside the state, and we want to make it like that state, which is basically reserved for React, and we can have it inside this one. And remember, every time when we are dealing with the state, we don't want to do it like inside the constructor, except for the initialization. So just to see a little bit of this stuff, let's go here and then just print that one. So what it means is over here, we just instantiated it, and then render is going to be happening like way later after the constructor. So by the time that we're just to see it like in action, let me make it like 10, and let's do p this. Actually, we have to do it inside this one. This that state that counter. And if we go back, then 10 is going to be just shown over here. So just I'll have like counter over here. And just we can see that, oh, not that one, where are we? Oh, that's because I'm outside of the paragraph, and since we know like the paragraph is block element, it's going to make it outside. So lifecycle, this one is okay, and this one is counter. Sorry about that. So this, like we have like the counter thing. Now let's take into the second part where we're going to be just having some of the changes to be taken care of when it is loading it. So let's say when it is loading, we want to increment it by 1, or when it is ready. And then that is where the component did mount would come into a play. So there is a component will mount, which we're not going to be just using it on this one since we don't have the exact usage over here. But the component did mount is right after the constructor and after the will mount, we have the access to that of like the component when it is ready to be used. So let's say inside there, we want to increment it. So what we can do is we can say component did mount, which is this one. And inside here, what I can do is I can update the state into just by incrementing by 1. And remember, like if I do this state.counter equals this.state.counter plus 1, then it's not going to work. As it is going to be just refreshing it every time, then it's not, you're not going to see like any change on this one. It's not going to hold the value. This is going to be just only for the internal purpose. At this level, it might have incremented it into the 11. So if we say console.log and then this state.counter, for a brief moment, let's take on inspect. And if we go to like the constructor, then you can see that there is 11 over here. But that was only for the internal purpose. Just this is going to be considered as pretty much like that of the local variable. It was not saved for the later usage. That is why we want to avoid directly using it on the actual state. Rather, we're going to be just using this set state, and we're going to update it on that one. So I can say counter and counter, maybe I can say this dot counter, not counter, this dot state dot counter plus 1. So what it does is this will definitely increment it by 11 over here. So the moment it is loading, it's going to read that one, which is 10. And then on the component did mount, it is going to update it for us, and we can see like the updated version. That's why anything which is related to like the rendering part, like going through like the API calls or updating the state or anything, we have to do it under the component did mount. And this is why we have to do that one. And this, you can think of it as an equivalent to the page onload, which is distantly related, but it is going to be the one when it is immediately available for us. What do we want to do? And then this is a kind of like a place we can jump in and then do what we want to do on this one. In this particular case, we want to update it. While I'm here, I just want to show one more thing. Let's say we want to add like the counter. Whenever we're clicking on it, then it's going to increment the counter, which is a classical one. Now, let's say a very increment counter, and now we know how to do that one. Would be just a matter of like simply copying that, and we can paste that one. And every time this is going to be just called, it's going to increment that. So over here, let me add, again, just as a reminder, this is as a part of showing you the life cycle. Otherwise, on the previous one, on the next ones, on the upcoming ones, we're going to see event handler, and in there, we're going to see those kinds of things as well. So let me add like a button over here, and the type is going to be a button, and I'm going to say increment, and over here, I just want to say on click is this that increment counter. And remember, you don't need to do like with this one, which is the calling. Like we don't want to call it. We just want to assign it to this one. So you don't have to actually call it with the two brackets or parentheses over here. You just want to call it, then assign to that one. So let's go back. Let's go back over here, and now we have like our increment. If I'm incrementing on this one, then you can see that there is a problem over here. Cannot read a property set state of undefined. This is why I wanted to show you on this one. You might come across like on those kind of problems while you are working. The reason is this increment counter does not have any kind of access to the this object over here. So in order to override this one, we can say this dot increment counter equals this dot increment counter dot bind, which means we're going to bind it with that of like the this and this, and that should solve the problem. And you can see that from now onwards, then you can see without having any problem, every time that I'm clicking, then it's going to be just incrementing it. So this is just one way to fix it. Or what you can do is if you use the ES6 version of like the function, then that would also take care of it. So if I have like the increment counter, and then if I say equals, and I'm going to have like the arrow function, and I can get rid of this one as well. And the state is going to be, you know, like handled within the arrow function. Then if I come over here, then it's going to be just perfectly working without having any problem. It might not have like anything to do with that of like the life cycle that we're talking, but this is important to remember as we go further. It is advisable that just to use like the ASX all the time, if possible, and that way you don't have to deal with those kinds of like state issues or the access issues with that of like the visibility. But other than that, like on this one, the main one was just to take a look on the constructor and the component did mount, and this is how we're going to be just using the constructor and the component did mount. So on the upcoming one, we're going to see like the next or the other state managers or the other like life cycle methods. And till then, I will say bye, and I'll see you on the next videos.